This is an intermediate wire and metal project, so if you've got some wire experience, this is the project for you. Here I have a sample with pearls and crystals. Crystals add a little dewdrop to the lily there, and this is the one that we'll be going through today in class. So get your tools ready, print your handout, and let's get started. And Leaves project, we're going to start off with these tools. First, a paper towel, scissors that cut paper, a black Sharpie, and a metal shear. For the second step, we're going to use a salon board for filing and a 1.80 millimeter hole punch plier. For the next step, we're going to use these tools. We're going to use a steel bench block, a period stamp stolen from alphabet sets, a variety of design stamps, a 1-pound brass mallet, and a frets texturing hammer. It has the sharp texture. For the next few steps, we're going to be using a series of pliers, the first of which is a round nose plier. These are all the Lindstrom brand. I highly recommend getting the Lindstrom. They're the best that's available, and you can find them on Beaducation.com. The next is a chain nose plier that's tapered, a flat nose plier that's square at the end, a German long round nose plier used mostly for the base here, and the Lindstrom flush cutter. To finish this piece, these are the tools that you'll need. There's the steel bench block, a 6-inch metal ruler, a pounding pad, a chasing hammer by Frets, and a Frets large embossing hammer from the Precision Smith line. There's 2 lines. This one's just a little bit smaller and perfect for wire work. And another option for a pounding pad is the sandbag. The materials needed for the Lilies and Leaves project are as follows. First, you'll be provided with a template for the leaves and the lilies that you'll cut out with the paper scissors. Then you'll have one 3x3 piece of 24 gauge metal. You'll have 24 gauge balled head pins, a selection of beads. What I've got here are some pearls and some shell mixture. You'll need 18 gauge and 16 gauge wire. I've already antiqued mine. It's easier to clean up. There's a lot of things going on at the top that you don't want to have to try and get under. And then we'll have a pro polish pad and an alcohol swab. You can see that I have cut out my template for my lily and for my leaves, and now I'm going to trace them onto my sheet metal. I'm just going to use a black Sharpie and go around loosely. I like to do the lily first to make sure that I don't forget it. And then I always use that side because I want to maximize the use of my metal. Then I'm going to try and fit the leaves in as best I can to get the most out of that metal. Just draw these on here. I have, after I cut out my templates, I've covered them in tape so that they will last longer if you want to keep them. So just finish up here tracing, and then you'll be ready to trim them out with a metal shear. For this step, you'll want to work over a paper towel. This will capture all the metal bits left over by the metal shears, as you don't want to get them into your hands and you don't want to get them in your kids' little paws. All right, so I'm going to take this metal shear and trim where this line is, and it's a loose interpretation. That's why I like the shears. Just trim out one of these leaves. This works instead of sawing because they're simple designs. If you went to a more elaborate design, you would want to use a jewelry saw. Okay, there are 12 leaves here and 1 lily. So get all your leaves cut out. You can break that off and then go back and trim, so you get lots of little tiny sharp bits. So make sure to capture them all in the paper towel. You can see here that I have an assortment of sterling and copper leaves cut out, and now we're going to trim around the edges. What we don't want in jewelry is a sharp point there, so we want to give this a rounded corner using the shears and still working over that paper towel. Be careful not to get that wedged in your finger. Yikes. And make sure to get all the sharp points off. The leaves will still have the effect of a leaf even though there's not a sharp point at the end there. But that's really important to me. Having purchased a piece of jewelry that was just pointy, pointy, pointy. Alright, so when you're finished trimming all your pieces, then you will take the salon board and file and get this until the metal is smooth to the touch. Get around the corners. I would get as many leaves as ready as for whatever project you're intending. A couple of them for a pair of earrings, or a multitude of them for bracelets or a necklace. All right, make sure that that is nice and soft to the touch. Okay. The next step is to take the 1.80 millimeter hole punch and punch a hole so that you can attach this leaf with a jump ring to the chain. I position it in 1/16 of an inch from the edge. Make sure just to get it at the what I consider the top of the leaf, the pointier part being the bottom, and punch. Take a little time and wiggle that off. I'm going to start here by creating the vein using a Sharpie just to give me a place to follow. Give me a little target there. And then I'm going to lay it on the pounding pad. I place the leaf on the pounding pad because it is soft and will allow the leaf to form as I pound it. I'm going to use the period stamp that I borrowed from an alphabet stamp set and place it right here where the Sharpie mark is, and then use a brass mallet, 1 pound, to put that spot in place. And I will follow wherever I've put a Sharpie mark, and this is allowing the leaf to curl. You'll see that in just a moment here as I pound it, and it gives it its own curl. If you were to do that on a metal block, it would stay flat and it would make the points not quite as pointy, they would be flat. Now we're going to take the chain nose plier, and I'm going to go travel up it one side and down the other to create a little fluted effect around like we did in pipe plates when we were young. Alright, so I'm going to take the chain nose and start here. I'm going to leave a little space on the side of each of these dots, but one right after the other I'm going to grasp on with the chain nose and then give it a tweak. There we go. And when the space opens up between the edge and the dots going down the center, I'm going to try and give it a little breathing space with this fluted edge. And I go all the way around, even up around this hole. And now there's really a lot of space, but I don't want to use up all the space with the fluting. I just want to give a little breathing space to those dots in the center. And at the tip as well. Okay, so now we have a leaf that's finished. You can see the vein created by the dots going down the center or a little off to the side there, and then fluting all around the edge and there's a side shot of it, and then the back where the Sharpie marks were to create those dots there. You can see here that I have cut out my lily form. This is the template that I used when I drew it on the metal. And I've cut it out here. What I want you to be paying attention to when you cut it out is sometimes it's a little amorphic and the sides get lost. So make sure to use the template and put the dots on the pattern as you have it down there, so you won't lose direction there. This guy already has his dots there, and now I need to punch some holes. So the holes get punched where those dots were. I am using the 1.80 millimeter hole punch plier, and I'm just gonna, I want to go in about a 1/16 of an inch. And not too much further than that, and then punch. Wiggle that off of the plier. And right down the side there. And punch. And there we go. So this guy has been trimmed out, sanded, and with its hole punched down on either side. This will be the top here, and this will be flaring out at the bottom. Now there's leftover Sharpie, and I'm going to take an alcohol pad and try and get that off of there, so that when I go to dip this in liver of sulfur, it won't act as a resist. All right, there we are. The next step, we're going to texture. Okay, so here's a lily that has already been textured, and I'm going to take you through that process. I have the metal block, taken the surface away and working directly on the table so that there's no bounce back. We're going to be using design stamps, and behind the design stamps, the brass mallet. I will use the frets chasing hammer. This time I'm going to use it for the plastic mallet side. When the metal gets bent like this, you want it to be perfectly flat for your stamp to come out nicely. And then a little bit of texturing with this brand new frets sharp hammer. Okay, so the first thing I need to do is flatten out this metal like I spoke of. So you can see that this piece of metal is warped a little bit, not too much, but it needs to be perfectly flat. So I'm going to take this plastic mallet end of this hammer and flatten that out so I have a flat work surface. There we go. And now we're ready to stamp. I am going to start off with my own design stamp. It's got my initials, JB. And you can get that here at Beaducation.com if you have a design for your logo. I'm going to place it on the right hand side towards the bottom, and then using the 1 pound brass mallet, I want to position my stamp vertically and hold on as low to the bench block as possible and give it one firm strike. And there we have the JB. I like to scatter my stamps all around the bottom here, and in a second you'll see that I've got a few on there. What has to happen now, you can see that the metal has warped a little bit again, so I'll take the time to flatten that back out. And now I'm going to try a different stamp, a little bit of the spirals. Can't go wrong with a spiral on any day. And for me, stamping is to give a little bit of texture and some excitement to the piece. I want to get the entire stamp embedded on The metal, although sometimes I run it off the edge just to give a little bit of texture there. So I like to create borders with my stamping. And then I like to run through with the period stamp again and create another little border. And any chance I get, I like to use my frets hammers. So I'm going to use the sharp hammer. It's the Precision Smith, and it's brand new this February. And again, I had to get that. So this is just a little tiny hammer, so you want to be pretty gentle with it. But I'm going to go in through here and create some sharp marks with it. I also want to see about getting some lines in there. We'll go to the thin side. Each of these hammers has 2 different sizes. You can see that I'm rotating this around so that it fans out to follow the shape of the lily. And all the while I'm avoiding my stamp so that it's there nice and perfect. And that is all for the stamping. I'm going to take one more frets hammer that I didn't mention earlier. This is the Precision Smith large embossing hammer, and I'm just going to tap all the way around the outer. Once all the way around the outer perimeter, just to smooth it out a little bit. If there were any little snags, it should be pretty smooth by now. But I would definitely double check with that salon file. All right, there we are with our textured piece, and now we're ready to start forming the lily. The next step in the lily is to form the shape of the lily. You can see this one that's already finished. It's formed all the way around. I used the spiral stamp and the period stamp. Can't go wrong. And then there's never really a front or a back, but this is the opposite side. So that's what our goal is. And I have this piece here ready to go. So I'm going to start off with my long round nose pliers to form this lily like this piece. When you start this, I want you to go slow and take your time and go gently with this metal. I'm going to start with this tool parallel to the edge here. It's got to be parallel. You can't start in here like this. Start at the very edge and get these. So I'm going to take these baby steps and I'm going to start curling this. And then I want to step in a little bit and curl it some more. And that's really what I mean by going slow. It doesn't mean you have to go slow, but just make this curve a slow curve. What can happen if you don't do that is it'll get flat on the back, and that's not what we're going for. All right, now I have to flip to the second side, but you can see how nicely that's curved there. All right, now I have to flip it upside down. And again, parallel. What's going to happen is, what your goal is to bring these 2 sides together. Baby steps, baby steps, baby steps. And let's look at the back. Oh, good. This is perfect because this is what usually happens in class. So, what we're going to do here, it's a little bit off. I kind of want that to be even with this. So what I'm going to do is take my flat nose pliers and hold onto this side at the bottom where it's thick, and I'm going to spin it around and take the chain nose pliers on this side and pull it up and in position. There we go. That's getting better. And now I can just take these chain nose and kind of tap this in to position. I'll bring that around here and even take the round nose, poke them in these two holes and draw that together a little bit. Let's see if it like that. Now, one of the things that we don't want to happen is for these holes to be impeded by the other piece of metal. So again, I'll go to the bottom with these and just tug them apart just a little bit here. There we go. And so that's what we're looking for. It does not matter that these holes are aligned perfectly across like this. This is perfect. We're just gonna provide some lacing, and it's gonna go from hole A to B, A to B, A to B. So there we are with forming that lily. Next, we're gonna go on to lacing. The next step is lacing up lily. We're going to take a piece of 4 inches of 20 gauge wire and lace together this piece. But first, I want to talk a little bit about my spirals. I have 4 inches of 20 gauge, and I'm going to start with my round nose pliers. The thing about spirals for me is that they need to start with a circle. The very nature of wire has a surface area at the end that prevents the wire from creating a circle. So I take my round nose and taper it down so that when you bring it around the first full time, it will make a circle. So here we go. I'm going to start at the very end of the wire, and I have 2 kinds of spirals, and we'll do both today. This one is a decorative spiral that doesn't need a large hole, so I'm going to start towards the tip of the plier, and I'm going to squeeze the very end of this wire, squeeze, squeeze, until I flatten that wire out. Then I need to bring this around the round nose plier. It has to conform to that plier, which is your forming tool, to become round. All right, then I will push that all the way around. So now you can see that I have a taper and that I have a good start with a circle there for my spiral. Once I'm done forming my initial spiral or circle, bring that around right there. I'm going to put my round nose down, then I'll pick up my chain nose. I want to hold that flat, so I'm approaching it from a different plane. Then with my thumb, I'm going to press this wire into that previous circle. And I only need 2 full revolutions here for the beginning of this. And there you can see the final spiral. Now we're going to lace up lily. I've got the spiral at one end, and I'm going to poke the wire down through the hole, and you'll find that it is important to have these large holes. It's a little bit of a fishing expedition up in there. If I just try to poke it right through, it may not work. Sometimes it does, but sometimes not. So I'm going to take my chain nose, reach in, well, I'm going to take it out, give it a little fish hook, and then bring it up, and there we go. So once you can see that wire coming out through the second side, take those chain nose, hold on firmly to the lily, and pull that through. Then you want to take this initial spiral and seat it right there on the side. Let's see if you can see that. There we go. Now I'm going to take this wire and pull it straight across. And now we're not paying attention to the form of this wire right now. We're just worried about getting this lacing going on. So I'm going to try and push it down through here, and if I need to, I'm going to get my chain nose and grab onto that wire inside. And get that wire up through, come on, And again, hold on firmly and pull that through. So you want it tight, especially you want it tight on the inside. You don't want there to be a big piece of wire hanging down through there. All right, then one more time. Down through here, and because it's so close, you'll need to pull that up, and down we go. Excellent. That's what we're going for. Then I'm going to take this and cut it to about 1 inch. It doesn't have to be measured. That's not how I do things. I just estimate it. That wire's extra, and then with the round nose plier, I'm going to start at the end, and I want my spiral to curl in this way this time, so I will approach it from there, and again, crimp, 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 bring it one full time around, and with the chain nose, there we go. And with the chain nose, this time I have to hold on to the lily and work your way in using the chain nose, and then seat it on your lily. Okay, so now I'm ready to assemble the entire lily. At this point, it's a really good idea to liver of sulfur all of your parts and pieces. That way, when you get finished, there's a lot of coming and going and the hard parts to get in to clean. So this way, they're already clean. Now we're going to start the assembly of the lily. I have gathered all my pieces of wire and head pins, and I've antiqued them in liver of sulfur solution to oxidize them. It makes it easier at the end for cleanup. And I will use a pro polish pad to get them shiny. You can see that I've already used that here on this lily. In preparation for stuffing the lily, you need to get several beads ready, anywhere up to 15 to 25, depending on the size and how many you want up there. I like more. I always like more. More is better, mostly. And then I'm going to show you my basic wire wrap. What it does is give the bead a little tiny cap on top instead of a leg. You can see that I've threaded the pearl onto the bald head pin. If you're interested in learning how to make bald head pins, you can reference Chris Silva's bald head pin class on Beaducation.com. Now I'm going to take the head pin and, holding the pearl in my left hand, bend that wire directly out of the hole of the bead so that there's a 90-degree angle coming straight out of that pearl. Now I'm going to take my round nose pliers and about 1/4 of an inch away from the hole of the bead, holding the pliers with my hand ready, it's up in the air ready to roll away, and I'm going to take that plier and roll. Excellent, until I am right up against the hole of the bead. I will finish the loop itself by bringing that wire around, and to finish the wrap, I'm going to take the chain nose at the end of the wire and bring it around, and as I bring this around, it is forming a little cap. Since I didn't give a little bit of a leg up there. Now let's see if I'm going to trim this off. And let's see if I can't get that there for you to see. Little tiny cap there. Now we're going to make the spirals for the bottom of the lily. You can see here I have 2 already started. These are of sterling silver. Started off with 7 inches of 18 gauge, and this one is copper, and it is 7 inches of 16 gauge. I created 2 spirals here, and then I flipped one over and pounded the opposite side so that they would mirror one another. And now I will make the 3rd spiral that will hang in the center. Okay, this time I'm going to create an open spiral. For me, all of my spirals start the same way. I I taper the ends here. It makes the wire a little bit slippery sometimes, so then you'll have to vie for a little bit of purchase. But make sure to get it to conform to that plier. Once you get that circle started, then bring it around on that round nose plier. Take that away. The difference with this spiral is that it's gonna go open instead of being a closed spiral. So I will still hold on to the initial circle with my chain nose, but instead I'll insert this middle finger and use the meat of the finger as a resist. And so I'm pressing that wire into that finger and bringing this around. Now there's no specific size, but that's going to be okay. We're just going to stop around 2.5 spirals. Right there, looks good. Spirals are a little bit fragile, so I want to pound them to work harden the metal. I'm going to use the dome side of the chasing hammer and spread the metal all the way around. Now I can take my Precision Smith large embossing hammer and give it a little bit of texture. And voila, now I have a ready spiral. The next step is to make eye pins. They will hold all the pearls and beads together so that you can stuff them up through the lily. I'm going to start, this is 8 inches of sterling silver, 18 gauge, and this piece is 7 inches of sterling silver, 18 gauge. I'm going to start with the 8-inch piece. This guy has a higher purpose. That 8 inches. I'm going to take the chain nose and about 1.5 inches in from the end. I'm going to give it a nice 90-degree angle there. Then I'm going to take the long round nose plier, and at the base I'm going to start about 1 inch out away from the angle there. I'm going to roll this in to create a nice basic wrapped eye pin. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm going to do that on the second one as well. Again, 1.5 inches in, make a nice 90-degree angle. Roll that long round nose in, wrap, and you're ready to go. We're going to do a little bit of testing to see how many beads we need going up through the lily, and once we're convinced that that's just the right amount, then we'll finish by wrapping them. The next step is to add the pearls. Right here I have the eye pin made. What I've done over here is just lifted that right angle up so I can poke it up through the lily to test it. And right here I have this piece loaded with pearls. It's not wrapped yet. The tail is up there waiting, and I'm just going to add a couple more pearls before we do our test. Right on like this and like this. And don't worry about the way they lay, because nothing is solid until it's all finished. Okay, so now I'm going to take the lily that we've made earlier, dipped and shined up. And the point of having 2 pearls on this guy coming in to test is it will help push the rest of the pearls down instead of them all feeding up into the cone of the lily and then clogging it up. So I'm going to hold on to this one and then bring this one up to test it. See if I can't get that up there. Come on. Yeah, it wants to argue today. All right, so it's going to look like something like this. Now, I like a lot. I like it filled up with a lot of pearls and beads. So it's up to you whether you like a few or if you like a lot. At that point, this will tell you, and don't fall in love with how this looks right here because it will change. I like a bunch going out the back and out the front. So this makes me happy. So I'm going to take these out, and then I'm going to wrap the tails. The first one's pretty easy. The second one, there's a lot going on there, and that whole hole is filled. All right, so I'm going to take those long round nose pliers that made that place and hold this right here, and then get a chain nose and grab that tail, get that back in that 90-degree angle, and wrap just a couple of times just so it's secure. This is going to be all stuffed up in the lily, so it's not going to show, but I still want to do good wire work here. There, the two pearls are hanging off, and I'm going to take the flush cutter and clip that tail. And there's our first part. Okay, now I'm going to make the wrap on the large bunch of pearls. So I want to take the long round nose plier and get it back in where it made that loop, just to hold it right there, and with the chain nose pliers get that wrap. Now this one's going to be stuffed all the way up in the lily, so we don't care so much if it looks that great. It's tough to get this right around here, so just do your best and get that wrap tied around that wire. All right, I'm going to take this out. It's a little bit loose here, so I want to adjust it by squeezing it here and here. And now I will take this and trim the tail, and I'm ready to go. Now we have all the parts ready to go to stuff the lily. We have the cone that has been laced. We have 3 spirals, and I've chosen to mix my metals this time. I've chosen the copper cone and then lacing it with sterling silver. So I want to reflect that again with the silver spirals and then the 1 copper spiral. And then the beads even tie into reflecting this color. Then we have the 1 wrapped eye pin with 2 beads on it, and the 1 wrapped eye pin with the rest of the beads. And we are ready to go. At first I'm going to take the cone, and I'm going to put the spirals up here. And we're not worried, this is a little bit cumbersome at first, but we're not worried about where everybody's being positioned right now. We're just trying to get everything up there so we can secure it and go from there. After you get the spirals in, then the first eye pin with 2 beads right up over those spirals. Come on, baby. And then lastly, the bunch of pearls, bringing that right up. Now, earlier we mentioned the length of wire with 8 inches and it having a higher purpose. That is the piece that had the 2 on it, and that is this piece right here. I'm going to take that piece and bend it to a 90-degree angle straight out of the top of the cone, and then I'm going to bundle the rest. And we're not worried about any of this right now. It's not how we want it, but we're not worried about it. We're just going to bundle the rest of this so that we are able to focus on this 1 piece of wire. I choose to use paper packing tape. It's got good tack to it, and it's easy to get off, and the residue comes off readily. So I'm going to take that and just wrap that up. All right, now we need to make a double wrapped eye at the top. This is also what's going to bind this entire piece together and make it feel like 1 unit. I'm going to start with the base of the long round nose pliers about 1 inch away from the top of the cone. And I'm going to roll this forward, and like I said, we want a double wrapped eye. So try and get that, bring this around. And I'm going to get this wire around over the top here. Gotta get that plier out of the way. Bring it down and around and pull that tight. Now, let's show you there. We've got that double loop right at the top. That's going to be the bail for the piece. It's kind of all-in-one. It's the bail. It makes it, it binds it, it keeps it all together. All right, so now I'm going to take this and place the long round nose back in and hold it there for leverage. Now you can see that I'm going to take this and wrap. I want to wrap from the bottom of the eye to the top of the cone, which is not a very far space, but it's got to go in that order. I need to wrap directly around these wires first so that they all behave as one. And I'm going to use just my fingers and wrap. So I've got those wires captured now, and continue to wrap. Get that around the top there. And I'm going to stop right here and do a little something, a little spiral or something with the tail right there. And like we're not worried about the placement of anything before. Now we're going to start finessing the piece, and we're going to have fun with the top. Okay, so now it's time to give it the finishing touches. I have taken off the paper packing tape and started to rearrange these so that they're popping out of the binding wire in order. And I will take those and either spiral them or make tendrils out of them. And when I say spirals and tendrils, right here is one of the finishing spirals, and this here is the finishing tendril. Let's see if you can get that right there. All right, and this piece to me is a little bit long, so I'm just going to trim it down by about 1 inch, and all the rest of them are just fine. I usually take the tail here from this piece and spiral it in. And these I like to use open spirals, but actually anything right here goes. This is your free moment to play, play, play. When I get done with all the spiraling and tendriling, I will position this bail at the top so it will hold everything. You can hang it from there. This piece I want to take and bend out at the 90-degree angle to hold those pearls tied up into that cone, out like this. And so I'm going to demonstrate a little tendril. I like to finish the ends of the tendril first by pounding a little paddle on the end, getting that little residue of that packing tape off. I'm going to start with the domed side of the chasing hammer and okay, and once you get a nice little paddle there, you can start to tendril it. The way I tendril, I want to use the long round nose plier. I'm going to start at the tip of the wire and the tip of the plier and vine it all the way up. So I'm going to work away from myself, bend this around, and vine this all the way up the plier. And there we go. Careful, because there's a spiral on the other end. I don't want it to go any further up. And I'll reposition these all when I'm finished. All right, this one's going to be long enough for a good open spiral. So with the round nose pliers, going to spiral there. And again, pressing against the meat of that finger, creating that open spiral. Okay. There we go. Nice open spiral. And I'm going to pound this one to strengthen it and texture it as well. Okay, I'm going to use the chasing hammer to texture. That spreads it out a little bit and gives some room for the texturing hammer. You can also take this and instead of just leaving it flat, you can take the chain nose and give it a little curve so that it is conforming to the outward form of the cone there. And when that comes down, it'll be kind of following the cone shape right around there, like that. And so two more. Actually, I can right now just take that long round nose and position that veil up there. I also want to kind of tap those two together with the chain nose. So I think one more tendril and one more spiral. Here's the final lily that we've created today. You can see here we have a bale ready to hang on to some chain. It's got some tendrils coming down and some spirals, and flowing out of the cone are pearls and hooked up on head pins. And for the last step, we're going to put all the lilies and leaves together. So now we have all our pieces made. I'm going to take the lily and a jump ring and connect it to some chain. I'm going to start with it so that I find my center point. Get it through that any time now. There we go. And with the chain nose and flat nose together, worry that jump ring together till they're touching. Then I'm going to look at the leaves, and we've got our jump rings right through the hole of the leaf, new jump ring right through the hole of the leaf, and I'm going to start closer to the lily so that I can see how it will cascade down there. And I'm going to put it on, and then I'm going to look at it and see if that's what I'm looking for. Yeah, that's pretty good. All right, then I'm going to take another. Okay, now I'm going to go to the second side and place a lily on that chain, or a leaf rather. And I have 5 leaves here. I'm going to put 2 on one side and 3 on the other so that there's some asymmetry. And right on the next link up on the chain, all right, let's just see what we have here. I've got 2 leaves on either side, but I think I'll add just one more for asymmetry on one side. Then it will be complete. Then you can add a clasp of your own choosing at the top. So here we are with our final piece. Here is our lily, that's the focal point of our piece, and the leaves cascading down around it from the chain. Here we have a fancier piece. The lily is connected to fused chain link. There are silver leaves added. There's little doodads added around the jump rings here that give a little bit of texture. This leaf here is pre-textured metal that's connected with handmade chain, and I have my signature piece on the back. And I always like to counterbalance a little bit in the back with a leaf and one of the rubies there. And it's finished off with a handmade clasp. Thanks for coming to share my Lilies and Leaves class with me today. If you have any feedback, just shoot us an email at beaducation.com. See you in the next class.